Check. There we go. Now everybody can hear me. Good morning. Happy Father's Day, everybody. I feel really blessed to be here this morning. Any fathers having a barbecue tonight? Anybody? Coming to your place. What time should I be there? Really excited to be here. Just excited to kind of share what really God has been putting on my heart lately. And I just pray this morning that you guys kind of see where I'm coming from and just kind of hear what I'm talking about. Normally they keep me to teenagers, and this morning I get to preach to big people. And it's not a dig on anybody's weight, but I'm really excited to be here and talking to you guys this morning. If I do mess up too bad, don't worry, Joel will be back next week. So he'll recover for me. I wanted to introduce myself a little bit to you guys. You guys know that we hired a new youth pastor, who was me, but you might not know too much about me yet. So I'm going to share a little bit about me to you. Number one, what you guys need to know is I was brought up in probably the most amazing era ever. I was brought up in the era that the Nintendo 64 was created. It was the most awesome, incredible video system ever created. And the reason why is because it created one game called GoldenEye 007. And I remember, in my childhood years, sitting in my room alone, playing 007, pretending that I was James Bond. Probably the best memories I had as a child. Because when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of good memories. One that kind of sticks out the most is feeling really alone, unloved, and afraid, because my dad had just thrown me in the ditch and told me to stay there and die. Because you see, when I was born into a family where my father wanted nothing to do with me. So he physically and emotionally abused me. When my mom found out everything that was going on, we ended up moving away. A few years later, my mom met another man. His name was Kevin. Now, Kevin, he was a pretty cool dude. He respected me, he taught me respect, and he showed me how to respect and love others. And one day, Kevin came up to me and asked me the question that every kid loves. What do you want for Christmas? You see, I was 5 years old at the time, but I was probably the most intelligent 5-year-old you'll ever meet in your life. Because I came up with this theory. See, I used to ask for like 10 things for Christmas, and then get 2 things on the list that I really didn't want anyways. So this year, I was just going to ask for 2 things, that was it, and hopefully I would get it. So the first thing that I asked for was something called Criss-Cross Crash. And what it was this little track, and you put your Hot Wheels cars on there, and it crissed, it crossed, and it crashed. Okay, we're on the same page. This is good. The second thing that I asked for, now you see, I was also brought up in the most amazing era for TV shows. Kids shows nowadays aren't as good as they used to be, but my favorite at the time was one called Lamb Chops Play Along. You guys know it? Some of you might. So what I really wanted was a stuffed Lamb Chops doll, the puppet, so I could mouth the words, and pretend that I was Lamb Chops when I was watching the show. So those were the 2 things I wanted for Christmas. That was it. So Christmas got a little bit closer, and you know when you're a kid, you get excited because you're like, yes, I'm going to get my present soon, because that's obviously what Christmas is about when you're a kid. And I just kept on getting so excited. And then one morning, about 2 weeks before Christmas, I woke up. I woke up to the sound of my mom's voice, and she was crying. She was crying, so I started to follow her voice, and I followed her voice right into the bathroom, where she was kneeling next to Kevin's body, because that night he died from a massive heart attack. See, now at 5 years old, I didn't really understand what death was. I didn't know what was going on until the day that I went to the funeral and I saw Kevin laying there. And I remembered those feelings of loneliness and fear. And Christmas morning came and kind of walked to the Christmas tree, and there was kind of just a sadness looming on us. And I went and opened up my first gift, and it was my Criss-Cross Crash. I was really excited, and then I remembered that the person that I asked for wasn't there. Then I opened up some other gifts, some socks, some underwear, things that only girls get excited about at Christmas time. And then there was one more gift under the tree. It was the perfect shape, the perfect size. And I have her here this morning. It was my lamb chops doll. And I remember ripping open my lamb chops doll and being so happy that I got her. And then reading the name tag on there and seeing that said Kevin. I'm just going to sit her up here so that she can enjoy it as well. But Christmas wasn't over that morning. There was one more gift under that tree, kind of pushed back into the back corner. I remember reaching down and grabbing it. It was just this little box, and it had my mom's name on it. I remember handing her the box, and she started to cry again. I'm really getting sick and tired of watching my mom cry. And she opened it up, and she fell off the couch onto her knees. And to this day, I'll never forget the day that my mom opened her engagement ring. And that morning, Kevin was going to propose to my mom. I was going to get a dad again, a father, someone who loved me. I was going to get that family that I'd always hoped for. And it was taken away that morning. We still did Christmas after that, but it was never a happy time of year for us. And then a few years later, I was sitting on the end of my bed, playing 007, pretending I was James Bond again, and the phone rang. Now, I can't stand talking on the phone. Does anybody here like talking on the phone? You guys are sick. I can't stand talking on the phone, so the phone rang. And I don't know what came over me that day, but I went and I answered the phone, and guess who it was? It was my biological dad. Man I hadn't heard from for over 13 years. He said, "Hey, Shane, I want to get together." And everything in me said I didn't want to meet him, but I did anyways. And I remember the day that I went to go meet him, and I sat down with him face to face, and this is what I said to him. I went every day of my life wondering where you were. I went every day of my life wondering if you were even still alive. But most importantly, I went every day of my life wondering why my dad never loved me. And he looked at me for the first time I had ever seen pain in his eyes. And he asked me the question that I had been hoping for. "Shane, will you ever forgive me?" And you see, in that moment, I felt like I was the most powerful man in the world. That finally my dad, check, perfect. And I remember looking back at him, and I had the power to destroy his life in that moment, to make right what he had done wrong my entire life. And I looked him in the eyes. I told him, "I forgive you." And you see, that was the hardest decision, but yet the best decision I've ever made in my life, was to forgive my father. Because you see, I thought finally I was going to get that family that I was hoping for. The family that I'd always wanted. Finally, that dad, that father that loved me, that wanted to be with me. But unfortunately, I was wrong. You see, about a year later, I was sitting in school. I was writing a math test, and I got called down to the guidance office. And in school, if you get called down to the guidance office, you did something wrong. So everybody kind of laughed at me. I got up and I walked down to the guidance office. And I remember walking in to the guidance counselor's office. And she was crying. I'm like, oh, great. This is never good. And I sat down and she handed me the phone. And on the other line was my mom, and she was crying. And I could just hear the words that she was trying to say through her tears. She said, "Shane, I am so sorry, but your dad died last night." And the room kind of went silent. The phone went silent. And I sat there. And now, you would think that I would go back to that same feeling of loneliness, fear, and anger. But instead, what I felt was an extreme amount of peace. And peace because I had the opportunity to forgive my dad before he passed away. Not a lot of people get that opportunity in life. But I feel that I was given that opportunity, and I feel blessed that I was able to do that. This story that I just told you, word for word, is my testimony of what God has done in my life and the chances and the opportunities that He's given me. And this is the story that I've actually shared in schools across Canada. Because I used to travel with a team and we would go into high schools. And the thing about high school is you can't talk about God in school. So what I would do is I would tell this story and I would have teenagers coming up to me and saying, "Are you a Christian?" And then I can talk about God. And this morning, I want you to kind of see where I'm coming from. And I think that this is a good start so far. I grew up really angry with God my entire life. I was upset with God on why did I never have a male role model in my life. And in 2008, I heard this song. And the name of the song was How He Loves Us. And I don't know what it was about this song, but it just hit me really hard. There was a girl that was singing it. Her name was Kim Walker. And it just really spoke to me, the way and the passion that she was singing the song. So what I want to do is, I am not a singer by any means. But what I'd like to do this morning is share this song with you. I'm just going to read the lyrics for you, and I'm sure that we do have them up there. And just listen to the song. You can close your eyes. It goes, "He is jealous for me. Loves like a hurricane. I am a tree, bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me." Then he goes on saying, "Oh, how he loves us." The next verse, "We are his portion and he is our prize, drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. If grace is an ocean, we're all sinking. So heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss, and my heart burns violently inside my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way he loves us." That was a song that I had heard. And it really said something to me. And so what I started to do is I started to research this song because I wanted to find the origin. And when I looked up online, there was an extra verse that wasn't in the song. And this is what the verse said. "Well, I thought about you the day Stephen died, and you met me between my breaking. I know that I still love you, God, despite the agony. Because people, they want to tell me you're cruel. But if Stephen could sing, he'd say it's not true, because you're good." I didn't understand why this verse was there. It didn't make any sense to me. So I started researching it some more. The song was written by a man named John Mark McMillan. And what had happened, he was at a prayer meeting one night with his friend Stephen, who was a youth pastor. And in this prayer, Stephen prayed out loud, "God, I would give my life to see a movement in this generation, in the youth of this generation." And that night, when Stephen was driving home, he died in a multi-car crash. And the next day, Mark got a phone call. And it was his dad telling him that his friend had died that night. And he was so angry. He was upset with God that this had happened because this man dedicated his life to teenagers. And so he went home and he just started writing words down, trying to start a dialogue with God. And he said, "I was trying to talk to God, but as I started to write, God was talking to me." And he started writing out this song. It was never meant to be a worship song, but it kind of came out that way. The song was written out of anger. And this song that I heard from Kim Walker was done at a conference with thousands of youth. And that night, after that song, over 1,000 youth went up and gave their lives to Jesus. There were healings. It was an amazing time. There's a video on YouTube. If you guys check it out, it's amazing. But how is it that something that was done out of anger and anger towards God was so effective? You see, this is where I'm coming from. I was angry with God. And I think that's why I connected with this when I was growing up. And I was angry with God. But who here has ever been angry at their parents? If you don't have your hand up, I don't know if you're telling me the truth this morning. Because I think at one point in our lives, we've all been mad at our parents. And you see, being mad at God made him very real to me. Because you can't be angry at something that's fake. And what it did was it actually made me passionate to learn more about who this guy was. This God that I was told about when I was growing up. And in later years made me realize I've always had a male role model in my life. The perfect male role model in my life. And this is what drove me to youth ministry. Because I want to share my heart and my love with teenagers and let them know that there is a man that they can rely on. There is a father who cares about them, and there is a dad who loves them, and his name's Jesus. And that's where my heart is. And when I was growing up, I've done a lot of research, and I found a statistic that kind of startled me, kind of upset me. One of the exciting things, did you know that if you become a Christian, 75 to 85% of the people that come to be a Christian become a Christian before the age of 18. That's a very large number of us that come to know Christ in our kid years. Now, another statistic is that 70% will walk away from Christ by the time that they graduate from high school. So that leaves us 30%. The sad thing is about those 30% is that 90% of them walk away by the age of 25. I didn't believe this the first time that I was reading this, and I started looking at other sources and realizing this is across the board true. And that really started to stir something up in me and start to upset me. What are we doing wrong? And so I want to quickly share with you is my vision for this summer and this next year. There's 3 things I'm going to be focusing on. The first thing that I'm going to be focusing on is relationship. It's hard to walk away from a relationship. So what I want to do is build a relationship with teenagers in Paris. Showing them my love and showing them God's love. This summer we're doing nothing but pool parties, barbecues, and fun. That's what I want to do this summer with the teenagers. So we can kind of build a relationship. The second thing is showing them who God is and showing them that God's real. That he's not just some higher power that we talk about, but that he's real and he lives in us and he wants to have a relationship with us. And the last thing, which I've always found that youth groups kind of fail at, is guidance. And what I want to do is actually start equipping the youth that after high school, after this time, if we guide them properly, that they'll keep their faith their entire life. Not only that, but I want to start equipping parents and working alongside parents to make sure that we're on the same page and working together. Through Sunday morning services, through conferences, through you guys volunteering and helping us out on Friday nights or Sunday nights. And speaking of volunteer, I'm going to tag this on the end there. I do need some volunteers this summer. If there's anybody that's passionate about youth, passionate about what's going on, and want to help out, if you guys can come and talk to me, I would like to start up some sort of a leadership team for the youth group that I can meet with and we can start doing things with. And so what I'm going to leave you guys with today is a little bit of homework, if that's okay. This isn't school, but I'm still going to give you guys some homework. The passage that was read this morning from Matthew, what I want you guys to do is take that home, read it over, and pray about it. And see where in that passage are we losing teenagers? Where is it that they're getting picked up and pulled away from us? So if you guys can do that this week and take that home and look that over, I'd really appreciate it. Lord, I just thank you for this morning. I thank you for the opportunity to come and worship you and to come and talk to you and just learn more about you and grow with you. I just pray that you just take everything that we talked about here, that you take what's going on in youth's lives and the struggles and just the tough things that are going on, and that you bless the youth of Paris. Not just the youth that come to this church, but all the youth of Paris. And that you just start striking up a passion in people's hearts to come alongside youth and help them when they need help. To help them in their struggling times and their times of need. I just pray that you bless everybody that has that passion. And just help them and show them what they can do to help the youth of this community. In Jesus' name.